Welcome back to Razmafsar TV. I'm having Usman from London back on our channel. Hi, Usman Jan. How are you?
I'm brilliant, thanks, Doctor. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. How is life in London?
Yeah, very good. London's it's an amazing city. There's like so much going on all the time. So I really enjoy it here. And also, right now, it's also in the midst of being a heat wave. I think a heat wave starts next week in London. So looking forward to it.
Yes. We are going to discuss about a very interesting topic. Is about a topic which is really dear to my heart. Is about stereotyping and biases, which can happen, which not can happen. When I teach at the university, this is a field I teach, like diversity management, cross-cultural management, and cross-cultural management. What is this? Cross-cultural management is what we do for companies. We are not doing social work. For companies, we say, based on McKinsey report, which was published a couple of years ago, again and again by different consulting companies, repeated and confirmed, a diverse team is more creative. A diverse team has more potential to explore and many things. So at the end of the day, diverse team are more productive and are better performer for a company. Everyone knows that, right? And for that reason, and if someone comes and say, okay, what is diversity? Because people try to attack the concept, unfortunately. I always say diversity has different dimensions. One of the dimensions of diversity, which we need to stress again and again, is the diversity of education. For example, I can give you an example. Many years ago, I have now my own company next to teaching at university, consulting company, but I work for the strategy and leadership department of two major German banks in the headquarters. In the first bank, which is really the largest, when I was working, and I remember diversity of education in the past when I started my career. German banks hired business administration majors and economics major, right? These two. But then they realized, for example, people who study economics are good in mathematics, or if they concentrate on finance. But then they realized if they, in business administration, if they hire mathematician, pure mathematician, they can analyze the markets much better. Because what is challenging mathematical calculations for economists and business administration graduates, for them is a piece of cake. So then they realized in the department I worked, when we teach leadership, part of leadership is ethics, and ethics is a branch of philosophy. But I didn't major in philosophy. My major, as you know, is in business administration, and my doctorate and English, and my doctorate is in English. But then those people who did doctorate in the whole thing in philosophy, they were so good at that it was a gain that the way they could, for example, come with this idea. So diversity of education showed now companies we need to mix, right? So given the same concept, we can come and just talk about that in different fields which we need the diversity. Then we can come on diversity of male, female, because if we do not take this diversity into consideration, it's going to end in stereotypes, that some people are being discriminated and they suffer and things like that.
Yeah.
But if it happens in the corporate world, which happens, if it happens in education, which happens, how does it happen in education? In Germany, we have this problem in Germany, because if you want to go, it's not like in France or like in the United States. I'm sorry, Usman, I don't know so much about your country, so you need to jump in. In France and the United States, everyone can go and do high school diploma, as you say, A levels, I think. In Germany, teachers decide if you're apt for that. Okay? In public schools, not in private schools. And there are also German professors, colleagues of mine, who did research on that there is a very scary trend that they do not send people with, in general, poor immigration background. We are not talking about those immigrants who came from educated families. Again, because they shift them into vocational schools, not universities. So, and things like that. So you see, when we come back to these type of things, we come and realize, okay, there is a stereotyping at place. And one thing which we both of us, we did competitive. You do still competitive sport. I did lots of competitive sport when I was young, and I observed it also in competitive sport, stereotypes and biases in competitive sport. Who is going to be on the team? Who is going to win? Who is going to gain this and that? That's why I invited you. Wanted to hear your ideas, your opinions on that, Usman.
Yeah. Yeah, so Doctor, my journey in competitive sports is quite an interesting one. So I started playing competitive sports really from about the age of 9 or 10. I began football, and football within the UK is extremely competitive. And for the international viewers, we're talking about soccer here. So yeah, soccer is very, very competitive. It's very difficult to make it within this field. And of course, being about age 9 or 10, I was thrown straight into it. It was sort of my dad's goal. He wanted me to become a footballer. So I played at a very competitive level from early on. But one thing I quickly realized is that there weren't many Asians within football. And I think, there are many reasons why, I think there is this trend. I think first and foremost, the diet. I think the Asian diet isn't really the best for being an athlete. That could be one. But also, there is also the fact that many Asian parents simply don't want their children going into competitive sports. I think that's another issue as well. But also, I think there is that unconscious, or whatever you want to call it, there is a bias as well. That sometimes Asian players, they're just not chosen. And this is something that hopefully in the years we can sort of see improvements within this, because, it really is a shame, because there are fantastic talents out there, but they often got overlooked.
Before we go ahead,
Yeah.
you mentioned the diet. What do you mean Asian diet is not good for competitive sport?
I mean, it's quite rich, and if you eat a lot of it, it's easy to become really fat. But that, of course, that's not literally. I mean, of course, you can have an Asian diet and still be very healthy. It's just like anything, if you have too much of it, it's not the best. Yeah.
Okay, it's because of that. And could you tell me about these selection processes in sport, how it happened, and these things, please?
Okay, so when I started, when I was about 9 or 10, I was playing at the grassroots level. So that's not really, it's competitive, but it's not to the same level when you're about 13, 14 and you're trying to get into academies. That's where it's a lot more competitive and selective as well. So from the age of about 9 to 13 is really just based on your talent. If you're good enough, you'll get chosen by the coaches. They'll sort of see you. And then once you hit about the age of 13, 14, if you're good enough, then that's when you'll get scouted. And essentially, these scouts are people who are sent by professional teams to sort of watch grassroots level football and sort of identify any talent. And if you're good enough and you show enough skill, you can get snapped up and sent to trials for these professional teams as well. So that's sort of how it works in terms of how they sort of get the talent pool of people they want. Yeah.
And it is a very competitive and pushy environment, isn't it?
Very, very competitive. I think especially within the UK, football is probably the hardest sport to make it in. Other than boxing, I would really say football has to be the hardest sport to make it in. Everybody wants to be a footballer when they're young, so that's definitely one of the reasons. And on top of that, football is one of the careers out there where it's so easy to get injured.
Yeah.
For example, myself, Doctor, I suffered many, many injuries from about the age of 14 to 16. I just suffered non-stop injuries, and as a result, that sort of led to me halting my career in football as well. So that's definitely another reason. It's extremely easy to get injured within football.
Yeah. I mean, everyone thinks you get injured more in martial arts. It's not true. You agree with me?
Yeah.
People always think if you do boxing, kickboxing,
Yeah.
MMA, wrestling, you get more injured. I don't agree.
Yeah.
Football has much more injuries for some reasons.
Yeah.
I fully agree.
Mhm.
Very terrible injuries.
Very, very bad. Yeah. I think with football as well is because you're running at such fast pace and you're not really expecting to get kicked. Whereas like in boxing, Muay Thai, you're expecting it. You can sort of protect yourself. Football is you're getting hit when you're not expecting it. And that's one of the main reasons why you get injured so badly as well.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And these scouts, then, for example, if they find a kid, let's say, or a teenager, or a teen, or a kid, and say this person is good, then what happens? They give him a contract?
Yeah, no. So I actually got scouted at a district game. So I still remember. I remember I got scouted at a district football game. I played very well in that game, and then the scout actually approached the coach, and they sort of said, "I want to scout him." And then I think one thing led to another, and what they do is they actually forward you onto the professional team. So you get trials essentially where If you're good enough and you impress the professional team, they'll give you a professional contract and they'll sign you on. But usually that trial process can be extremely long and tedious. I remember once I trialed at a professional team called Millwall, and I was there for about 9 to 10 months just on trial. So it can be very, very long process.
I remember, Usman Jan, before I just give this example, I just want to ask you, you said about the processes of bias. You know, imagine I'm a scout and I see different kids are playing and they're also good. Now, if I want to go performance run, just solely based on performance, actually, I should choose any kid, no matter where he or she or how he or she looks like, right? So I don't do what she or he looks like. I don't need to sit there and just say, okay, I'm going only to choose certain backgrounds, right? People, ethnic backgrounds. So why does it happen, in your opinion?
It's a good question, Doctor. I think I think there are many ways to approach that. I think first and foremost, looks does mean a lot in football. If you're somebody who looks the part more than enough, you're going to get chosen to sort of take the trials and stuff like that. I think that's got a big part to do with it. And I think, of course, with that is that bias. Sometimes people they have a sort of unconscious bias where they look at somebody and they sort of think to themselves, no, that person's not going to be good enough down the line. Or I think that also is another reason why.
I'm going to mention an example. I hope this is okay. Years ago, you're too young to remember it. Maybe you saw that game. Years ago, when the French team was playing against the Italian team, and when Zidane was playing Zizou, right? And then this headbutt came, right? Have you ever seen that game?
Yeah, I've seen the headbutt. So it's a massive. Everybody remembers that moment.
Okay, you know.
So, yeah.
And that game, when it happened, we were in Italy. We were in Rome, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. And look, I really I have many Italian friends. I have also in martial arts, also as consultants, also in research. Please, I'm not saying it could be every country. I'm just giving some examples. It could be Germany, it could be any country. But it was in Italy. And Italians were all people I was there. They turned to me and said, look, we've won. We've won with a real man. Because, okay, they were men, right? And unlike the French team, most of them are hired guns. You know, and I looked at them because I don't speak Italian, of course, and they spoke good English. It's not because of they were not fluent. And I looked at them and said, do you know in American English what a hired gun means in this context?
Yeah.
And I knew he knew. And I said, hired gun means that person doesn't belong to the unit, to the army, is a mercenary, right? Now I know, you know, Usman, I know many people in the American military. I mean, also in my team, you know that. And I said, these are called hired guns. Means actually they don't belong to the real unit.
Yeah.
So there are mercenaries. And I think we don't need to explain that mercenaries not necessarily enjoy the best reputation. Also not among armed forces, you know that. And so, yeah, if you want, there are mercenaries. They're French citizens. They grew up in banlieue of Paris. They suffered so much discrimination. They made it. How do you dare to say that in front of me? And I didn't let them go, oh, come on, manager, we want to celebrate. No. You need to take it back. And then he said, oh, come on. No, he didn't want it. But, you know, let's just spend some time on this. You know, Usman, I always say I really like people who are honest. I always say, if you believe in something, you preach something, you practice it. But this guy, on his job as a consultant, was always preaching diversity.
Yeah.
This is what gets to me. Look, if he just said, I'm against it, no problem, it wouldn't hurt me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have hurt me, excuse me, back then.
Yeah.
But he, you know, hired gun. This was, you know, this is one of these things which are, you know, and which actually supports the idea or the impression you were just talking about, Dan, So we made it without hired guns, right? Okay. This is one of the things I really wanted to mention. That and then I remember the second thing from the German team. Again, the German team was playing, and then there was a German player of Turkish background.
So yeah.
Özil, yes.
Yeah.
And he was playing again. We were watching because from time to time, my clients or my clients and my colleagues in the consultant, they always say, "Oh, Manusha, you need to watch." And then and then all of a sudden, Özil was losing the ball. I mean, I'm not good at football, so I don't know. I watch. I don't understand actually mostly what happened. I prefer American football because then they bang each other. This is my field, right? But anyhow, but then he lost the ball, and he said in German, "Ja, so spielerisch," meaning he's so playful. This is because, listen, of his background.
Yeah.
Look, and I'm not a football expert. I'm not a player. I just know somehow how you can score. So I cannot judge what playful even means, because this guy played football when he was a young guy. Not like you, but lower level. And they say, "What do you mean he's playful because of his background?" Yeah, it affects you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The second thing, and he played football, right, as a German guy. Mm-hmm. This is the second thing I wanted to mention there. I think this was this one and this one. And then my kids said to me just recently, they are half French, and they told me that they love Mbappe. They love him. They have so many pictures of them, my boy and my girl. They're the hero of them, right? And they said, "Dad, my boy came to me, Nima. I know you know how he boxes. I have a question for you." I said, "What? Why in France, whenever he makes it and wins a game, he's French, and when he loses, he becomes African?" 10-year-old guy, boy. Can you believe that? So you see three examples I wanted to give now. Again, I love France, I love Italy, I love Germany. Please, guys, I'm not criticizing anything, any nation. I'm just trying to put up something here to discuss for some people who say it's only a question of performance, right? Like, I had it in the class, and some of my students said, well, this, regarding male, female, right? I said, if the establishment is so male-oriented, which does not allow the females to climb up the corporate ladder, so what should females do? You see, people always say it's only a question of performance. Usman Jan, I ask you openly, let's stick to sports, don't come to the corporate world. Is it really always a question of performance?
No.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is not. And this is something which we need to stress that. And if we want to believe in McKinsey report as far as corporations are concerned, and also sports are concerned, we need to take this into consideration and accept the fact, and which is very, very important to realize.
Yeah. And Doctor, I completely agree, especially with that point about football. It's something that you see a lot. Even with a lot of these professional footballers, I mean, a lot of them, they even get taunted on the pitches. They get called terrible names. And I think it happens a lot even within the Italian league as well, where a lot of players get taunted on the pitch and they actually come off the pitch crying sometimes. So there are some very serious incidents going on, and it's of course a massive shame to see.
Yeah, it's a massive shame. Yeah. It's a massive shame because, this person is giving his best, is playing at such a high level, and we all know what it is. You can be the best. Now, I know it from martial arts. I know I had students who were extremely tough fighters in sparring. They were extremely good athletes. They were really good. But when they went to competition, they completely changed because they could not cope with the stress, Because that, Osman, not everyone can compete because then you need something. Competition is a different thing. I remember, I had a student who was really so successful with competition, but in my club, another student always beat him up. But that student Every time in competition he lost, he was not good because he was so stressed. He couldn't cope with competition stress, if I may call it that way. He really couldn't. And now those guys who compete at such high levels now, especially in football, I can imagine, when you do martial arts, okay, I mean, there are many people watch you. You are in a ring or you're on a mat. I mean, at very high level, more people watch you, but it's not like a football. Millions watch you on TV. There's no comparison to football. So many eyes on you, right? So I really,
And
really,
and and with football as well, just make one mistake or automatically scapegoat where everyone sort of blames you. That's a matter of football. Whereas in martial arts, if you make a mistake, nobody's going to really blame you because there's only two people fighting. Whereas
yeah.
in football, you're going to be the person blamed, not the other 10 players on the pitch, but you. So
Yeah.
that's yeah.
That's true. That's true. Um, um, Osman Jan, how just before, thank you for just mentioning that. So just pointing out that these problems exist also takes courage. So I would like to thank you for having this courage and then pointing this out on this channel. Then the second thing I wanted to ask, or another thing I wanted to ask you, how is it in the United Kingdom? First league, you will have a good life and you earn very well in the UK. Everyone knows that, not only in the UK, in Germany as well, in Spain as well, France as well. How is the second league? If you're a second league footballer, can you live from that? Can you have a life?
Surprisingly, yes. In football, there is so much money where even the championship players are extremely wealthy. So there's a lot of money within football. Yeah, I think even up until maybe even Division Three, still on very good money. I think footballers in the Premier League, even if you're a bottom team in the Premier League, you're on at least maybe 150k a week, £150,000 a week, or some £100,000 a week. It's crazy figures these footballers are on.
Yeah, so of course you can.
Yeah.
So is it one of the reasons that many people want to become footballer? I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's one of the main reasons. The money within the game is incredible, and also I think football. If you look at it in terms of if in terms of how easy it is to make it, I think in the sense that different to maybe boxing or cricket, whereas in cricket you only have one main league and only a few teams. Within football you have quite a lot of teams, so there's of course a lot of, if you want to call it, vacancies open. Whereas in boxing, of course, you have to be one of the top 5 boxers to even earn a lot of money. And if you're in the top 10 in boxing, even then you're not guaranteed to earn a fortune.
No, you're not.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons in football there are a lot of teams you can play for.
Is boxing still a big thing in the UK?
Massive. I would still say boxing is still massive within the UK. There's a lot of boxing gyms everywhere. But I think boxing is one of the sports. I think for me, it has to be the toughest sport to make it in the world. Because if you look at modern day boxing, look at the heavyweight scene, for example, there's only about 5 or 6 heavyweight boxers who are known and earning the big money. There are, in fact, boxers who are ranked about 10 or 11 who are having fights, but not earning nowhere near the sum as they should be, the sort of money they should be earning. Yeah.
And then UFC hasn't replaced boxing yet in the UK, right?
No, I don't think it has yet, but I definitely think that UFC is gaining a lot of popularity. And I can see within the next maybe 15 years, they can take quite a significant segment of that audience. But I still think the boxing fan base will still stay there because boxing is a sport that's been around for so long, whereas UFC and recent concepts.
Also nowadays it's better, but even in the US, you make much more money in boxing compared to UFC. There is no doubt about that, right? What is interesting for you in boxing? Because you, as a footballer now in boxing, what is interesting for you in boxing?
I think boxing, the best thing about boxing is you can truly find out what you're made of. There's one thing being on a football pitch and being on a lot of pressure, but in a boxing ring is you and your opponent. And when you're getting hit and you're bleeding, or you get a mark, or you get punched, you begin to know what you're really made of. So it sort of cultivates a toughness which you can't find in any other sport. Yeah.
Okay, very good, Osman Jan. Would you like to share anything else with our channel members? First of all, before we finish, I would like to thank your dedication, your commitment. Really lovely the way you do. Keep training all the time, archery, swordsmanship, all them. Very nice. Boxing, you show us boxing. Very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All the thanks goes to you for all your efforts. as well, Doctor.
And also going to museums. I really appreciate it. You really your commitment and so. Would you like to add something to our discussion today?
Yeah, one thing I would like to add then, Doctor, is I think, when dealing with this problem then of bias or whatever you want to call it, I think it's really important for people, even Razmaf's our members, we must always be open. We must never have these biases. Because Doctor, these biases they're what lead to downfall of societies. When the societies have these biases, they're not going to thrive. So I think as people, we need to be extremely open and we need to be extremely considerate for other people as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We need to. Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Osman Jan. I wish you a nice evening and see you soon.